Hello there. I wanted to record this quick video to show you how you can optimize your phone home screen layout. This video will be about Android phones predominantly. If you have an Apple phone, there might be some takeaways, but it's mainly for Android phones. I'm using here a Google Pixel 3. I'm a big fan of Google Pixel because I think that Google phones tend to be the fastest to get software updates, and this video, it might be broken into a few parts depending on the platform, but this video is really about how to maximize the functionality of your phone. And I think just on the whole, on that topic, Android is better than Apple, so even Apple users, until Apple starts adding in some more of these features that Android has available, and I'll particularly talk about some of the things Android can do at the end of the video. Apple users might want to consider not necessarily switching over to Android entirely, but maybe getting a backup phone. An original Google Pixel goes pretty cheap, and it'll give people access to some of these features that they might not have otherwise if they're just using Apple. But anyway, let's get into it. One other thing I wanted to mention is that at the end of the video, I'll be talking about an opportunity, something I'm very excited about, something you'll be able to get involved with if you decide to, and we'll kind of head in that direction as we go throughout the video. But that's something I'll talk about at the end. If you want to skip straight to that, then that's fine too. And now that the preliminary stuff is out of the way, let's get into the layout. So I call this my Basilica layout. You can see it looks kind of like a basilica. The goal is for it to look good on landscape, or in portrait and on landscape, and I think it works on both. And then there's another requirement that I have for a phone screen layout, and I'll talk about that later on. I don't want to give it away just yet, but this is the final product. Now let's go through it in stages, and let's talk about what's going on and break it down a little bit. So if that layout looks a little bit complex at the moment, the complete version, let's break it down by stages. And this first one you can use even if you don't want to get the full layout. As you saw in the previous video, this is a simpler version, and the advantage here is it's really great for using the phone to access entertainment content. So for people who are just interested in the simple use of the phone, which one of the simple uses is just to watch videos and listen to music, that kind of thing, we've got all of that here. We've got the audio folder, video folder, and then communication, so messaging apps go down there at the bottom. We could also rename that, we could call that interactive. I call that interactive. The way that I decide what goes in each of these folders is simple. It's, does this audio run in the background, in which case it goes over here? Does it run in the foreground, but I can leave it, in which case it will be videos? Or is it something that I interact with in order to use it? Most of the time when I'm using it, am I kind of putting in data and getting data back and that kind of thing. So that's basically messaging apps, but you could chuck in other things there as well if you wanted. So this means that audio is a bit of a misnomer. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean audio, but in my experience, 99% of that is going to be just music apps. So if I call it audio, it's a bit faster, like I can identify it a bit easier. So it's a bit nice rather than naming them like foreground and background or something like that. It's just a little bit easier to understand. So that's how I've named it. Okay, so next we have the A shape layout. This one here, you can see it's a bit of an A, or you could even look at it like someone seated in the lotus position. The other one's a cross. This one's a more lotus position, Eastern iconography as opposed to Western, I suppose. But this one is more for people who are interested in using the phone for its features and getting more functionality out of the phone, using it more productively. That's probably the word for it. What we have here is now we don't just have the one app store, but we've got a whole folder, 4 different app stores. You can see I've got F-Droid in there as well. Not every website is going to work with the Google Chrome browser or any particular browser, so it's often worth having multiple browsers so we have backups. Also, like a Tor browser. Tor could be a good one to put in there as well, an Onion browser. So we've got those ones down here. Termux for using the for interacting with the operating system of the phone in a way that's a bit more sophisticated, kind of the layer underneath what we're seeing. Then let me talk about Memento Database a little bit. This is where we have the layer on top of the phone being interacted with a little bit. So Memento Database, if you're not familiar with it, is an incredibly powerful application. There are other ones like it. I quite like Memento Database. It allows us to control our data, store our data, manage our data in ways that are very sophisticated if we so choose. So people can, at a simple level, maybe use it to store anything, maybe recipes or something like that. But then as people really start making use of the features, I think there's a lot of opportunity to be very sophisticated in one's use. So it can become like a customer relationship management tool, a way that we manage information that we have about other people, like a contacts management thing, or it can be used as a file manager. So we can store information about different files. Now, how that's done, I will talk about later on in the video, but I'll just introduce it now. I've got Memento Database there up the top. And we can also shift back and forth between these two layouts. So they actually work in tandem with one another, and that's quite a nice way to do things. I've done that myself, where I've got these two here. This one has the content. If we want to watch videos and stuff, that's what we find on this screen. And then if we want to be productive, we've got this screen here. I've got these two folders, which I'll also mention. We've got organization and production. Again, they've just got a couple of apps here just as a demonstration, but you can really fill these up and populate them. I would recommend organizing these by alphabetically, but you could also organize them by how popular the apps are, like how frequently you use them. There's nothing wrong with that. You could also look for some logical organization method where we look what are the features and how fundamental are they. So, maybe we think authentication, well, that's very fundamental. And then maybe, something that's a bit less frequently used or has a bit less value to us, maybe we put later on. Now, let's take a look for a moment at some of the emergency apps that we've got here. And this layout, there's a little bit of convenience. Most of it's to do with what is going to be ideal for an emergency. And so you can see here I've got on the sides, there's a map application, there's a phone application, translation up here, messaging, browser, all things that could be useful in an emergency. And then I've also got the camera and the recorder app. I think there's two kinds of emergency in 2021 that we want to be aware of. One is one where you can just call the emergency services, use the phone app, and if that's an option, then that's ideal. But there are some circumstances where we're going to want to record audio, and we may want to record video. You know, an example of that would be a protest or something like that. If one is actually engaging with law enforcement already, maybe we want to be able to record those interactions. I've got voice recorder here in prime position right in the middle down here, because I feel like, well, for one thing, we have that shortcut where we can double press and get the camera, but also there may be circumstances in which it's important to record. Now, by law, this should only be done in an emergency, but we want to be able to record without it being as obvious as us pulling the camera out and pointing it somewhere. So I've got that down there, right in the middle. This next layout is just a clock. Shows us the time. Not much more to say about it. This is on a Google phone, so it has this fun feature where this application icon will show us the actual time. So you can see it's showing 11:45 there. That's something that's only available on Google Pixels, or on Google phones rather, I think. But anyway, that's kind of a very simple layout if we want absolute simplicity. Now, this last layout, we went through what we could do when we talked about that M-shaped layout in order to have both convenience and emergency functionality. This one is just focused on emergency functionality, so it's pretty similar. We've just shuffled a few things around. We've got them, they're accessible, they're in the middle, so we've got them accessible by both hands, and when we rotate it, we've also got things in the middle. Not everything's stuck over there on the right side, but we can access things there as well. So, this nice little S shape. This one, just thinking about emergency services. Chrome, we might want it in an emergency, not necessarily though, so it's been moved. We don't have it here in kind of more prime positions, just up there, one layer higher. So I'll just move these apps back. The one's over there, here, here, and move on to our complete design. You can see we've got these two widgets. I'll talk about those in a sec, but first of all, something that's kind of fun. Just go back through so you can see we've got our A shape, we've got our T shape, M, little O. Now that was an S, if you can recall, something like that. Oh, we've got an S. And what does that spell? Atmos, which is what I want to talk about at the very end of this video. Before I get there, let's just quickly look at what we've done in this final layout. So we've basically combined all the elements that we had previously. Because we've got these applications here up on the side, these widgets, we've moved down our organization and production to the side, but otherwise we've pretty much got the same A shape as we did in that case. We're basically just combining all those shapes that we went through together to then come up with this layout where we've got every space being used. And if this were on, close that. If we've got a desktop and we're using a desktop, we might have a bit more width, in which case I would recommend even putting these widgets to either side. So like, I guess they'd go, let's see if I can show this, close you, here and there. If you see where my finger went there, like you can move them so they're on either side. The reason we want to show notifications on our home screen is exactly that, because we want to be able to show, and this is the other requirement I have for a layout, we want it to be able to be consistent on our mobile phone and on a desktop if we're using a desktop emulator for Android, and this layout achieves that, I think. So I'm quite happy with it. Hopefully you find some value out of what we went through today as well. Now let's jump on to the opportunity and what I'm excited to share with you. So Atmos is a database-based operating system. A database operating system. If we go in there, what we're doing is we're using database management software, but we're using it in a little bit of a unique way, and I think a fairly sophisticated way, and really exploring what the potential of database management software is. So you can see here, rather than us listing movies we've watched or something like that, we've actually got users. So these are users. These are different profiles that we can log into. We go into that, and this will ask you for my password. So we're just going to give a very basic illustration of the concept, and then I'll talk about how you can help us take it to the next level and turn it into a product that you yourself can use, and I'll go through what some of the advantages of that would be. But you can see, to start with right here, we basically have a layout that resembles the phone home screen, where we can have these different applications, and we've got them listed here. We can sort them and search different applications. We've got these tools up here. This is our home screen that almost replaces the Android home screen, but it's built on top of it. So that's kind of starting to get across this idea, hopefully, of what a database operating system is. Now, the advantage to a database operating system, an operating system that's built not on top of C or Objective-C or C++, but it's actually built on top of a database management system, is everything is a lot easier to modify, everything's a lot more customizable, and everything's a lot easier to extend. So that's number one. The next advantage I'll phrase as a question, and the question is, in a world where cloud computing is ubiquitous, which it now is, how many operating systems do we need? And I would suggest there's an argument to be made that really we only want, in some ways, one. Everyone logs on to the same system from their computer. The advantage of that is it's a lot easier to share data between people. So that's the next advantage. When it's easier to share, it also becomes easier to combine different data into things like creative works and stuff like that. So creativity and productivity goes up. Database operating systems, I think, are the design that can really take advantage of that idea that everyone is able to log on to the one operating system, the one kind of giant computer, if you will, because of cloud computing. And finally, the third application, the third advantage, and probably the most practical one for you watching this video, is it becomes so much easier to manage our data. If it's easier to manage our data, we can gather more data, we can store more data more effectively, and I think it's high. So what that means is people are probably familiar with creating an internal, like a company wiki, or using at least a company wiki where the company shares information and procedures and stuff like that. And they'll use that to share files as well, associated with different projects and different procedures and whatever else. And so there's an opportunity for people to have that kind of system, not for their company, but to have it for themselves. And so if they've got a project, then using a similar kind of architecture like Confluence or an internal company wiki would use, they can organize their own projects, organize their own files in a similar kind of way and create a knowledge base for themselves. So I think that's quite powerful. Basically, files have their own page. You can add comments to them and all sorts of other things. That's something that a database operating system is really well designed to cater for. So, how can you participate? What we're doing is running a crowdfunding campaign, so pretty straightforward. But because this is software, we were thinking, what prizes can we give people? And we could do merchandise and stuff like that, and that's fine, but is there something that's a little bit unique and that's something really well suited for software in particular that we can offer? And what we thought was, what if we came up with a set of NFTs that gave people access to a different version, a different theme, some cosmetic differences that made their experience of the software unique. So that's what we're doing. If you go into our crowdfunding page, you'll be able to see we've got several prizes, several different layers at which you can donate. But as you go up the tiers, you start to look at getting these additional benefits in the form of an NFT, so a collector's item that gives you access to a unique version of the software that only a handful of the people in the world will ever have. So we think that's kind of cool. But you can check out the crowdfunding page. I'll chuck the link to that somewhere around this video. Maybe I'll post it up in the video itself. And that's all from me for now. So thanks very much for listening, and we can talk another time. Now, just as a bonus, let's quickly mention what I do have up the top here. If we scroll down, you can see we've got Push Bullet, that's a good one. Notification Cleaner, NCleaner, I'll often have as well. Team Viewer I'll have set up a lot of the time also. And then, I mean, we have the YouTube thing there, but that's, we can close out of that now. There we go. Let's have a look what else I have. So Caffeine, I didn't have that switched on for the early parts of the video, as you probably saw, but I've got that on now just to make recording a little bit easier. And that's pretty much it. So I'll often have on Do Not Disturb. Other than that, Push Bullet, NCleaner, TeamViewer. Maybe also like Desk Dock or Space Desk, if I'm combining my phone usage with using a desktop computer, and that we'll talk about in another video.